In this video, I'm going to be breaking down how I run my ecom creative team to make over 2 million per month. Now, really quickly, just to show you that this is true, you can see I'm looking at June, 1.98. Sorry, I know I'm off just a tiny bit there. July was a little bit less. Right, there you go. And then you can see over the last, let's take a look at the last 90 days. Why not? Just to show you, we'll go June to mid-August. Why not? And there you go. You can see we're at 4.42 million. Not too bad. And that's just not to flex. That's just to show you that what I'm going to go over may be a little bit useful. Now, with that being said, how I run my ecom creative team to make over 2 million per month comes down to a few things. In this video, I'm going to be focusing on weekly sprints, monthly alignment, and then quarterly incentives. This is the three kind of touch points, if you will. Not the best use of words for that, but the three touch points that you need to be consistently putting in place as systems and processes within your creative team for your brand to have those systems smooth and processes running really well to hit the output you need to scale consistently, and more importantly, actually have that work taken off of your shoulders, right? Because you should still be the one directing it, giving the overall direction and strategy of what's needed. But most brand owners, once they hire a creative strategist or something like that, they're still the ones actually in there doing the job for the strategist without even realizing it. And so in this video, that's what we'll be breaking down. Now, really quickly, if you want to work with me one-on-one, we're offering free consulting calls in the description. There's a video breaking down why I'm doing a couple of these for free, but my promise to you is that we will not pitch you at all. It's a completely free call, no pitch. We're just gonna give you value and next steps. Then only if you ask us to let you know how it works, you could ask us and we'll tell you. Either way, if not, you'll come there, you'll get a full roadmap and plan to go scale. So with that being said, let's get into it. So first, weekly sprints. So we got setting the focus and retrospective, iterating quickly, and then smooth processes. So let me unhide this here. Now, first and foremost, setting the focus and retrospective. Before going into each week of testing, you need to set the focus for the team. One of the major things I realize with most brands that come to me is that their team, or even them themselves for the most part, don't have clarity on terms of what they should be testing next for that week. And it's up to you as the head of growth, if you want to call it that, to set the direction and clarity for the team. Without clarity, your creative strategists, your copywriters, your video editors will kind of be all over the place, and they won't be congruent. All right. And what happens when that happens is that the quality of the creatives you're putting out will be much, much less. Okay. Now, how do you actually set the focus for the team for the next week? Well, this is based off of last week's testing results, the top ads, and losing test. Every single week, you should be meeting with the team after the 7 days of testing have gone, and you should be going into the ad account live with them and brainstorming ideas of what went well, what didn't go well, what's top performing, and what do we need to focus on for next week. This is why we work off of weekly sprints. Now, most brands will work on like a 2-week sprint or monthly sprint. They'll say, okay, here's the focus for the month. We're going to do a lot more type 1s, a lot more type 2s. The issue is you don't move fast enough with this, right? If you have a new winner that pops up into the account this week, you need to take advantage of that right now, and the team needs to know. To the level where if I ask my video editors on my team right now, what are our top performing angles? What are our top performing creators? What's our top performing editing styles? They know. And if they don't know, you're probably lacking somewhere in terms of the systems or process, or even just once again, the clarity of each team, of each person on the team, to be able to work together to provide the best output. Okay. So after last week's testing, so go review it live with the team, break it down, and at the end of the meeting, do a summary, what's working, what's not, and set the direction for the team for the next week. Now, once again, you need to do this weekly because you need quick turnaround and to build off of momentum. Once you can't waste time. Let's say you have a new winning ad pickup, and it's picking up, you launched it within the first 7 days. It's now spending $2K a day, let's say. You don't know how long that creative is going to last, right? Each creative has a life cycle, if you will, or a threshold at some spend where it's just going to jump off a cliff and eventually die off. Now, it could be 4 million, it could be 10 million, it could be 2,000, it could be 20,000. You don't know. The point is, when you have a new ad picking up, you need to double down on that quickly and build off of that momentum. Too many times what will happen is these creative teams or brands with their creative team, they'll find a new winning ad, they'll start iterating on it or creating new concepts around it and start doubling down on it. But by the time it actually gets live in the ad account, that's 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks later due to getting content from creators and whatever that may be. And that's simply too slow, and you need to take advantage of it quicker. So once again, at the end of each weekly sprint of your creative, you need to set the focus and retrospective, meaning review the performance, decide on what you find the learnings, were your thesis is for the ad test true or not true, and set the next test for the week. That's up to you to set the direction for the team until you eventually have the head of growth take over for you. Now, the next thing with weekly sprints is kind of what I touched on a bit on that first point is iterating quickly, right? In your weekly sprints, you need a big focus on iterating quickly. New winning ad equals heavy focus on iterations. So let's say you've gone through a slow period. and you can't find that many winners, and you kind of ease off the iterations a bit, and you're going more type ones or completely new concepts. I call them type ones, completely new concepts, completely new ads, and type twos iterations, okay? So let's say you're going completely type ones, you're doing 80% type ones, 20% iterations, because you haven't found a big winner in a while, so you gotta take a step back, you're taking bigger swings into new personas or angles or avatars, whatever it may be, okay? But now you finally hit one. That switch needs to happen right away, and you need to go from 80% new concepts to 80% iterations that week and for the next weeks of testing until you see the results. And so you always need to be changing this every single week, because what will happen is, once again, you find a winner, you iterate, you're at 80%, 90% of your outputs iterations. Then when these iterations stop working as well, you take bigger swing tests on that still main concept, and at this point your new concepts, your type ones, should still be around what's working. And then when both of those aren't working as well, now you know you need to take another step back and go into new avatars, angles, personas, etc. Okay? But this has to happen on a weekly basis, or you're simply moving too slow. So, like I said, most brands' turnaround times on this is too slow, and momentum of winning ad dies out before iterations are pumped up, right? By the time that iteration goes out, or not even before the first iteration goes up, but before you have many iterations to go up, because once again, they're not going to work, but you need to stack those wins. By the time that happens, the ad's already, got to 60% or 80% of its life cycle, let's say, and starting to dwindle out. And at that point, the iterations aren't working as well because that core ad is dying off. Okay? Hopefully that's making sense. Implementing this, essentially 2x our business in 90 days. By just tightening from like kind of bi-weekly or monthly goals, what we wanted to do in the ad account and what the focus was, switching that weekly, and once again, very specifically, putting a very, very, very big focus on iterating quickly once we have these ads pick up. And doing the weekly sprint allows you to do that and allows the team to get on board with that, to have clarity that you need to do it effectively. So, next is smooth processes, right? To be able to effectively run these weekly sprints, your creative process needs to be dialed. That means you need clear responsibilities for each team member, right? You don't want things to go into the hands of, let's say, more than like 3 or 4 people in one creative, right? Let's say it goes from the creative strategist, then it goes to the content manager to source content for it, to the editor, back to creative strategist for final review. There's only 3 people involved with that. If you have more people involved, it's probably just a little too lengthy. You want to make this as streamlined as possible. Have the tools and softwares in place to where making iterations is faster, to where the editors don't need to go find content in the drive or online and they have to go scavenge the internet for a couple hours. You need to streamline this process for them. That way you can go from ad script and ad brief to final ad very, very quickly, okay? So that goes in line with streamline where you can to save time. Like, use tools like Recharm if you can afford it. If you're just using Google Drive, make sure you organize the drive based off of hooks and B-rolls and types of B-rolls that you need. That way you can just go and make it very kind of very Chad scaling, very no-brainer, where the editors can just go in and say, okay, cool, here's hooks, and then here is unboxing, and here is product demo, and here is testimonial. And they can just go in, find the best clip, and put it in. Which kind of leads me to another point in my head right now, which is if your editors aren't skilled enough to do that, and you need to give them very specific directions, you need to train them further, because once again, that's not going to scale, it's slowing down your output. So make sure they're at that level. And next, if corners are being cut, you know you have a bottleneck in the systems and processes. How do you know if your system or process is good? Well, simply, it moves smoothly. There's no issues, right? Now, you know you have a bottleneck in your system or process when it comes to creating creatives and getting them live in the ad account. If you find that for your team to reach the KPIs and output goals you give them, they're cutting corners, right? There's more spelling mistakes. The B-roll isn't the best B-roll they could have selected. We're not sourcing enough good creators, etc., right? All these parts, if the quality starts dropping a bit, you know somewhere along the lines, either someone isn't trained enough and they need to get up to speed, or once again, the system and process isn't dialed in enough, which leads to that lack of quality as it goes further down the production line. If you want to think of your creative team like that, okay? So that's weekly sprints and the 3 main points of why you need to do the weekly sprints. Once again, set the focus and retrospective based off last week's testing. Make sure it's up to speed with last week's data, and that's what's determining what your focus is for the next week's testing. Really focus on iterating quickly, and then as you go through this process, any bottlenecks, when you know there's people cutting corners in terms of quality, then you know you need an improvement in the process to make them smoother, okay? So that's weekly sprints. Now, monthly alignment and the monthly cadence. So the first point here is how many ads should you be testing, doing the math, and the performance review and next step. So first, every single month you need to redetermine what your output should actually be, right? Because if you scale up or if you scale down, your output needs change. And this is going to really determine, once again, how many people you need on the creative team, how many creators you need, how good the systems have to be. As your output increases, you're going to have to improve the processes and systems alongside that, right? Which is why we look at that on a weekly basis. Now, monthly, you need to figure out, well, how many ads should you actually be testing? Because what happens is people will scale. Let's say they scale 50% in a month, but then they keep the same output for the next following months. And the issue is now you're barely at your minimum requirement of output just to even maintain the scale, let alone scale to the next level, okay? So you need to always have a pulse on, okay, what should my output actually be? Then figure out where your limitations are in terms of teams, systems, and people to be able to put that in place to hit the output goal needed. Okay. And ideally, as you go through this process and you're kind of projecting your growth and you have a better idea of where you're going to be, let's say 3 months, 6 months time, you're starting to put the pieces in place before you even get there. That way, when you get there, you don't have to slow down. Now, that just comes with being a more seasoned operator, as you go through the business and get a couple of years under your belt. But pro tip, I guess, if you will. Now, how do you actually do this? Once again, every month you need to recalibrate what your output should be at to set the weekly KPIs for your team for the next month. So part of the weekly sprint is, once again, having clarity on the monthly goal for the output, so then you can give those KPIs to the people on your team to go and do that for you, okay? Now, example math, how do you actually figure this out? This is, once again, just a brief overview of example math, but essentially you should take your monthly ad spend, multiply that by 20%, because in general, 20% of the ad account budget or spend should go to testing. Now, you could do more, you could do less. Once again, it's just a general example, and divide that by 100. 100 be assuming we're testing each ad for $100 of budget. Now, once again, if this is 50, if this is 300, if this is 200, you could change it for what you need. But in a very basic general example, this will give you a close enough baseline to where you need to be in terms of your output. So once again, let's say the monthly spend is 100,000, and then obviously 20% of that would be 20,000. Divide that by 100. You need 200 ads per month. Minimum. That should be going out, okay? Minimum. Now you can see it's really not that difficult. Now instead if you did 100 per brief, which I kind of would recommend you do because more output's always better, then it may be, let's say you do 3 ads per ad set, it would be about, let's say you gave $100 per brief instead. So scratch the math I just said. Let's just say you gave $100 per brief instead of per ad, right? Because assuming you test 3 hook variations or 4 hook variations, whatever it may be, now you're at 200 briefs, right? Instead of 200 ads that you need to output. And if it was 200 briefs or concepts, once again, let's say you had on average 3 ads per brief or per concept, that's 600 ads a month, right? And you can see when you do the math, you now have a general baseline of where you need to be for your output to set your weekly KPIs to do your weekly sprints off of, okay? So go set the KPIs for your team, do the math, reverse engineer, and make sure you have the output goal you actually need. Most cases, you're probably behind what you need. And if you're not, great, just double down. So the other thing we need to do monthly is the performance review and next steps. So the first thing you got to do is review overall performance with the team, right? What went well, what didn't go well, identify what needs to improve, and set the monthly goals to improve that, okay? It's very simple. We could go in a lot more detail with this like I do with my clients, but the point is keep it simple. You don't have to do too much, but the entire team should get an overall performance review from you at the end of the month. They need to know if their work resulted in growth or if it didn't, etc. And then that way they're all clear on why you say we have certain issues versus what we don't. Now, in general, and just brief overview, the goal of this here is to narrow out what's working and what went well and what didn't go well. Then you remove what didn't go well and you double down what went well. You do that again the next month. You remove what didn't go well, you double down on what went well, and you repeat that process over and over and over and over again, and that's how you really stack your learnings after months and years of running the brain and scaling it, okay? So keep it simple. As long as you're doing that and then passing that information along to the team, that's the goal with the performance review every month, okay? Some things you could do, review top concepts, ad formats, etc., and then take some time to identify what the ad account / ad library is missing, right? If you go to your ad library and it's only let's say UGC, like the standard 30-second UGC style. Well, why don't you try some longer formats? Why don't you throw in some images? If it's all one concept, maybe we should have a few different concepts. If they all have, 1 or 2 avatars or creators, why don't we expand this to 3, 4, 5 different avatars? The point is, what is the ad account and ad library missing to diversify it further and that you need to scale? Maybe it's all going to one lander, you need a couple new landers, etc. Maybe it's all running from one Facebook page, you could throw in a couple other Facebook pages based off avatars, etc., right? So that's a part of the monthly review that you can do. And once again, once you have this information, you now set the type 1 versus type 2, which is once again, completely new ad, new concept versus an iteration split for the next weeks. So now that we know what the ad account needs, what worked and what didn't work, we can now say, okay, cool, for the next couple of weeks, we should focus mostly type 1s or mostly type 2s. go into that for the next week. Once we see the results, go back to the weekly sprint and adjust as needed, okay? This sets your overall direction for the month. Then the weekly sprint, you're just refining it as you go along to really increase the winning ad hit rate and then increase output to what's needed, okay? Hopefully that's making sense. Now, quarterly incentives. We have a couple things to go over here. First is set OKRs and then quarterly one-on-one reviews. Now, OKRs are the quarterly goals for the people on the team. Now, you should set about 1 to 3, and less is more. If it's only one key one, that's even better than having 3 for your key players. I don't do this for editors or graphic designers. I do this for my senior strategist, my junior strategist, my content managers, my head of ops. Now, this is specifically for the marketing team, but I do it for my head of growth, etc. Now, you want to set the OKRs based around what you need to achieve to scale. Then set their incentives around these OKRs. This is where people get it wrong. They have the incentive, but the OKR is very input-based versus results-based. Now, the thing is, on the monthly goals and weekly KPIs, this is output-based. Okay, we need X briefs per week, or we need X videos edited per week, or we need X spend per week, etc. to make sure you're on track output-wise, doing the inputs to what you need to do to hit your overall quarterly goals. The quarterly goals for each key player here is to set the goal of what they need to hit to achieve the growth in the business you want to see. This is how you actually get freedom from you being the one to do the work, is by giving them this OKR, this quarterly goal, and then get out of their way and let them do their job, okay? Focus then on training them, setting overall direction, and give them the resources needed. That's how you get the freedom. If you don't set a very clear and achievable goal that leads to the results you want in the business, they're not doing it for you. They're just focused on their weekly input. Now, the weekly input is for you to have a scorecard to understand, are they doing what they need to do on a daily and weekly basis versus are they not? And are we on track to hit the monthly and then quarterly goals? The quarterly goal you set for each person allows you to take a step back and let them do their job, right? So if it's a media buyer, let's say it's spend X amount at Y target, and then the incentive structure for that quarter will be based around that goal. This way, they still have a clear focus on the quarterly goal. I can get out of the way, let him do his job, and then now I only need to hop in and kind of tweak things and refine things. If I see month over month, we're not on track to hit the quarterly goal. Okay, then I have to step in and obviously give more direction, etc. If they're doing it fine though, even if it's not your way, or it's 80% is good, as long as they're hitting the OKR, they're on track to hit it, don't get involved. Let them do their thing, because this is how they're actually going to do their job. And once again, I really encourage you to take a look if you have this in place. And if you do, take a look at how effective it's actually being, because there's lots of times where you put this in place and just by habit, you're still stepping in and doing the work for them, right? More or less. And that's what you want to get away from. And if you simply don't have the confidence in your team to do that, either one, need more training, or two, you just need better people. Okay. And off the back of that, we have quarterly one-on-one reviews. So you want to review last 90-day performance with them one-on-one. This is one-on-one. You want to give them credit where it's due, plus review their quarterly goals, okay? Address any issues needed, and then reset clear expectations, and don't be stuck with the OK team members. So it's important that you hop on a one-on-one call with your key players. In fact, I would say every person on the team, every once in a while, until you get to a certain size, and also you'll have a manager do that for you, etc. But your key players, you should be always hopping on call to get a one-on-one touch point with them. Why? You need to give them feedback. They appreciate it. You can get feedback from them and lots of good ideas that they wouldn't have brought up to you otherwise. And issues with other people on the team, etc. And then two is mostly to review those quarterly goals. Did you end up setting a goal that was fair to hit and it was achievable? Once again, you'll determine that when you hop on the one-on-one with them. Two, how did their last quarterly performance go? And are they good enough for what you need to do? Because the issue is that when people don't set these OKRs, which is why I include this, is that they have people who do okay and do decent, but they're not actually growing the business for them. And you don't want to be stuck with these OK team members where these are the ones that they do a good job. Like the ads they output or the editing they do, like they're good and it's decent. But deep down, they're just really not like that good, like really making the difference, right? Those are the people you don't want to be stuck with. And if you don't have this process in place where you set quarterly goals for them and let them do their job to see if they can do it, if they consistently aren't hitting it with training and resources and you helping them to the best of your ability, you got to get rid of them, okay? And if you set it and they're hitting it or hitting 80% plus of the goal consistently, great, they're growing the business for you, and they're doing a good job, right? If you don't have this in place, you don't really have an overall really good touch point onto whether they're okay and doing decent versus they actually really are scaling the business for you on your behalf and making real progress, contributing to more profit and revenue in the business, okay? So this is how I run the creative team to make 2 million plus per month. Now, once again, if you want a free consulting call, no pitch, I promise, we're just gonna give you the clarity on your next steps and give you any value you need and answer your questions. If you want to hear a pitch, you let us know and we'll do it. If not, you just happily leave the call with value. That's in the link in the description. Outside of that, hope you enjoyed this and I will see you in the next one.